so let me fix this for the tall guy here. Sound good? Again, I have this, propensity to tend to, is that better? Okay. To try to pace, but I'm going to stay here to make it a little bit easier on the cameraman in the back. So first of all, I just want to get a show of hands. How many people have heard of comScore? Awesome. So subtitle to this deck is called Bots Don't Drink Soda. But first I'm going to talk a little bit about comScore. So let's get started. So comScore, as James mentioned, we were founded here in '99. I was actually the first engineer at the firm, so I've been there since the beginning. And our goal and our mission is to make audiences and advertising more valuable. And our goal is to try to provide a total view for the consumer and basically provide trusted independent metrics to support the buying and selling of advertising. We're a recognized market leader. We have 48 of the 50 online properties, 10 of the largest internet companies, and 10 of the top 10 media companies as our clients. This is just a sample of some of our clients. We have over 2,500 clients worldwide, and our headquarters are right here in Reston, Virginia. With that, we've gone ahead and we have our own data. And this data by itself is exceptionally useful. But with that, it's even more useful by partnering and integrating with lots of different folks. So whether it's Newstar, IRI, Seismic, Tremor, Yahoo, Renttrack, Lotame, et cetera. All of these different things, we can take our data and make the data even more useful and more actionable to our clients by integrating it with other data sources. With this, we've created this massive and unparalleled data sources. The foundation is a panel. It's an opt-in resource, which is 2 million people worldwide. We have data coming in from over 172 countries. We report out on over 45 different markets every single month. In addition to that, we've partnered with our clients, and 90% of the top 100 US media properties are partnering with us. And that generates 1.8 trillion new events of data every single month that we take and we process in and report out. With this, we've also integrated 1.6 billion demographic profiles to truly understand what's happening out there. Because our goal is to be able to take the different information that you see on different computers, right? So on one computer, one PC or one Mac, you'll have multiple cookies. How many people have a smartphone? Let's get a raise of hands. How many people have a PC? How many people have a tablet? How many people have more than one tablet? So our goal, right, and I've been accused at work where my household is not exactly representative with 25 connected devices. But our goal is to basically take all those different devices and those different signals and combine that down, because what our advertisers and people working out there, outside the tech world, they want to understand what people are doing. And that's what we report out. Our goal is to basically take all that machine data, distill it down to understand how many people did something. Right? So the stat that James just said was 7.27 billion people. Do you know how many distinct cookies there are? There's a lot. But comScore alone, just on our own network, will see over 15 billion distinct cookies in a month. So obviously, there's a lot more cookies than there are people. And on top of that, then we've matched that with 231 million US consumers to get an idea of what's happening, to take it not just beyond what they're doing on a digital basis, but connect that to what their household purchasing is doing, et cetera, so you can have a better understanding. This gives you an idea. Big data is quite the term. I will say we have a fair amount of data. I know there's some 3-letter agencies down the street that probably have a whole lot more, but this gives you an idea of our data volumes. So we hit almost 1.9 trillion last month in terms of total events. When we run aggregations, we do tend to run those over 6 trillion events, just to give you an idea of the data and the size of what we're seeing. This data comes from everywhere, right? We are a big believer in the notion of being global, but deliver locally. This gives you an idea of our data flow. So we have data coming in from our panel and from our census network. Our census network, for example, is deployed on the 100,000 plus servers that are an Akamai's network. That gives us a great response time. of like 22 milliseconds in the US mean. And on the panel side is our own data coming into our data centers. We pull that data into our collection array. We process that, and then something we do a little differently is we actually dual load this data into two different environments. We're a big adopter of Hadoop, and we use MapR's distribution. We load that into that system continuously. We also load it into an analytics data warehouse. And that data warehouse is out there so that people can get a quick read and understand what's happening. And we use the processing power that MapReduce provides to produce our analytics. We then publish that to an enterprise data warehouse, and then eventually data gets to our clients. Drilling down. So that large analytics data warehouse is a 200-node Greenplum cluster. So basically, you can get at and query 1.5 trillion rows of data. Sorry, no, 2 trillion rows of data. This gives people, whether in their analytics, QA, product management, product development, et cetera, the ability to understand what's happening and quickly be able to prototype and design things. Once those things are established, we then go ahead and bring it to the big iron, which is our Hadoop cluster. Our Hadoop cluster is 450 nodes, 18,000 plus cores, and 10.5 petabytes of disk, which runs sometimes 80% CPU for periods of time, producing our reports. So sometimes we're producing over 5,000 different syndicated reports on a daily basis, just on the advertising analytic piece. So digital, what I'm going to do is comScore, you'll see a lot of references to comScore from a data perspective. So I want to give you just a couple factoids to set the stage of what's happening in the environment. So from a digital media perspective, this is what's happening out there. So as we all talked about and everybody raised their hands, you see that there's people using desktop, they're using mobile, and there's multi-platform. So this gives you an idea of what the major players and how they're trying to reach the market in lots of different ways. So it was thought that mobile devices would take away from desktops or take away from laptops. But really what you're seeing is it's actually building upon each other. Much like OTT, right? Will OTT take away from TV, right? Or will they work collaboratively? Or will your tablet work collaboratively with what you're watching on TV? And this is what we're seeing, is that these different patterns are emerging. So you can see how Google has been successful in taking desktop and multi-platform and mobile. You can see AOL there with 200 million distinct people just in a month using all the different platforms combined. And look at how these different things are producing year-over-year audience growth. Like look at LinkedIn. So in 1 year, they drew 68% growth in audience by basically supporting this multi-platform strategy and being able to be there where their clients want it. This gives you an idea of what's the fastest growing apps. Look at how fast Lyft has grown. Kohl's was amazing, right? They put a big effort into rolling that out there. Obviously they start with a small base, that's why it's 793%, but there, and then there's obviously Tinder. Let's talk about mobile. So this is the smartphone penetration. Back in 2005, before the iPhone, do people remember those days? 2005 was 2% smartphone penetration. Now it's over 75%. And this is how it's changed. So it's amazing to see how the distribution and the shares have changed dramatically in just a short amount of time. Where back in 2005, BlackBerry had 25% share. Now Android is dominating with 53% share. But if you slice the data a little bit differently, what's the most popular device from a smartphone perspective? Apple wins, where they have 41% share. Then comes in Samsung, LG, et cetera. Let's talk about multi-platform, because from a digital perspective and from an advertising perspective, people just don't do campaigns just for TV or just for print or just for digital. They're now doing it in a multi-platform strategy, and they want to go ahead and deliver that across all these different platforms together. So you can see here, this is the total digital media time spent by platform. So as I said earlier, everybody thought that, oh, everybody would move from TV onto tablet. It would cannibalize. But you can see here, we just spend more time looking at glowing rectangles all day. And you can see the share of demographic audiences by the age group. So look at this. This is really interesting. So age 18 plus, 76% is multi-platform now. Now, granted, the 55 plus crowd is coming along at 66%, but still, it's over half the time. And look at basically from the content categorization perspective and how content is being shared out there. You just can't decide to go to one platform any longer. You see portals, 73% on desktop, 27% mobile. Photos, 93% is mobile. It's amazing to see how the different share based on platform is emerging by these different categories. E-commerce, that's where we got started originally, trying to measure that. So this is a total US retail digital commerce growth. So you can look at what's happening year over year. So it's still posting very respectable gains at 19% year over year. But mobile is starting to take a larger chunk of the pie. And that's where you'll start seeing a larger shift to basically do that. And whether it's look to buy, people doing competitive shopping while they're out there, that's what's happening. You'll see this interesting use of different types of devices and connecting mobile behaviors to desktop to actually the brick and mortar. And the percent of time spent, you can see here there's a big monetization gap from a dollars perspective on where things are going from time spent versus where the dollars are spent. So more people are spending time on mobile looking at things, but they're actually not converting on mobile. And they're waiting till they get to the desktop. And that's an opportunity to go ahead and work on and capitalize that opportunity to build something. This gives you an idea of digital content. So look at where the retail digital commerce dollars are going by category. Digital content and subscriptions are now 27% growth, right? Compared to just digital commerce. Computer software, not many people, everybody's buying free software now. Advertising. So percentage of viewable ad impressions. So there's a lot of ads out there, everybody knows that. But what we started to do is a lot of analytics back in 2012, which is really trying to measure how many ads are actually seen. So the shocking part is, in a total average perspective, 46% of display ads are actually seen. Right? So there's an opportunity for help our advertisers, help the agencies, even help the sites provide more valuable content. Right? So ads and spaces on web pages can be infinite. But if nobody sees those ads, are those units useful? Right? You could actually have less ads with less ad spaces and charge higher CPMs by just targeting places that people actually see ads. Yes?
Say you don't see the ad, it means it's below the fold, they didn't click on it, they didn't get displayed, what's happening?
So our technology measures basically whether it's in the viewport. So it's not about above the fold or below the fold, it's whether the ad was in view for a period of time. So if it's below the fold but people actually scroll down to see the bottom, if it's been scrolled down and you see it, it counts as viewed in this case. So this is not just basic geography of from a newsprint perspective where you're looking at above the fold or below the fold. So then point lift from mobile advertising is what happens as you take these different things from a mobile perspective. 2.5% lift in awareness, but also a 4.3% improvement in purchase intent by leveraging mobile advertising. And that's the thing, is where does mobile advertising fit into the ecosystem and where do you use it effectively? So the central theme of where we're going to end up next in the talk is talking about, bots don't drink soda. And the sad part is there is fraud. And there's fraud in display ads, right, where people are taking advantage and sometimes making a lot of money by running ads that people will never see or putting ads out there. We call that technology IVT, invalid transactions. So you can see here that there's lots of different types of things. When you run an ad campaign, about 5%, so 79% of the campaigns have less than 5% invalid traffic, which is actually pretty good. But there's 7% of the campaigns have over 20% fraud. Right, so so it's not exactly an evenly distributed problem. It's not like all ad campaigns have a certain percentage of fraud. It's actually, it varies dramatically by player, by how it's run, and how you do that. And that's an opportunity for advertisers to optimize their spend. So if you're going ahead and you're spending money to run those ads, and this is a CPM model, not a click model, how can you go ahead and improve that? Because you can improve the money that you spent, you get a better ROI on that ad spend. And this is our interface for when people use our technology. They can go ahead and put a piece of JavaScript and run it with the ad campaign. And we'll go ahead and give them updated daily metrics on how that ad campaign is doing. That campaign will tell you whether the ad was in view, whether it was visible, whether it was in target, and whether it was delivered in a brand safe manner. So brand safe is something that's not objectionable. If you're advertising cruises, you don't want to be next to an article talking about a cruise ship, catching on fire. Generally not receptive advertising, but I'm sure we've all seen that. So this is the invalid, it does have a big thing, and a lot of the press out there is starting to pick up on this and starting to write articles. Large advertisers and even the publishers are realizing this. Where basically it's the Wall Street Journal, iMedia, and advertising agent, Financial Times are all basically have run stories talking about this is a real problem out in the industry. So IVT can negatively impact site traffic and advertising. So media, you need to solve this problem because media sellers, it causes a lack of trust, damage to relationships, and loss of revenue. On media buyers, it's wasted ad spend, lack of transparency, and missed opportunity. So IVT is pretty complicated. So the MRC has come out. There's actually two classes, basic and advanced, and we're attacking the advanced side. So the basic is just scrubbing against the bot spider list. The advanced is basically looking for botnets, browser hijackers, right? So people are actually creating toolbars that insert ad units into pages that should not naturally be there. How many people have ever gone to Google's homepage and seen an ad? Right? There's actually people out there writing software that are injecting ad units into every web page that somebody sees. That wasn't put there by the publisher. There's click farms, content scrapers, spiders, ad stacking. So ad stacking is where basically you see the regular ad, but actually what people are doing is they're adding ad units behind that ad. So they're running up the bill for every page view, because they get paid per page view, but people actually never see the ad. So comScore has developed a couple different unique assets to identify that. First is we have ad tags that go out there with the trafficking. We have our census tags that are out there on 90% of the top 100 US media publishers. We also have a human panel, so we know what truly is happening. We take all that data, and then we can go ahead and quickly understand all the real-time signals that identify whether it's a bot or a click farm or a content scraper or zero-size windows. So that, duplicide. And how do you identify human activity? So this is what we've done. Now, how can you go ahead and take this how can you build this into your systems? How can you identify fraud? Because fraud can happen in lots of different ways. So this is how do you identify human activity? And here's some quick ideas on how you can build this into your own systems. The first thing you need to do is establish a baseline. Understand what is normal. Take a known set of traffic that you think is valid and use that as your baseline. You have to establish some traps. Good sets of traps are CAPTCHA, entry forms, URL sites that people can't natively get to. Right? So if you see people going to these things that there should be no natural way they get to, this is a flag that you can understand this is invalid traffic. It sets up a signal. You then have to understand what's happening in the population. Do you see a high amount of IE traffic to your site? Or a certain section? Do you see a lot of Safari traffic or Chrome, right? You have to understand what is normal for your site and then look for those outliers. Because that will lead you to something to understand if you have fraudulent traffic happening. Because basically you can do an observed distribution and a model distribution. You can quickly see where there is something that is causing problems. Once you get the data up, you get a baseline, you establish some traps, you understand the population, you then need to automate it because this stuff has to be run every day. And it does change every day, and get that into production. So you can run frequently, you continue adding telemetry, you shunt your processes, and most importantly, build in some clawbacks. So if you're getting referral of traffic from other people, you want to be able to make sure that you can flag that to get a rebate if people are sending you bad traffic. Because unfortunately, not everybody is honest. And with that, I'll go to questions. If everybody's awake. Sir?
So do you feel like there's an issue or potential risk to your core business model in terms of people explicitly turning off tracking, particularly for their mobile devices, in terms of disabling a lot of the data that they're collecting?
No, I think it's an opportunity, actually. We respect the user's choice on whether they want to do that. It's a normal part of the world, right? And people need to understand that. We have mechanisms to basically estimate what that ratio is to understand that. So to us, it's actually an opportunity for us because we can help give information to other people that don't have the techniques we have to basically understand the share of population that's actually doing those activities. Somebody, yes, sir. Oh, sorry, there's a microphone coming.
What are the newer forms of ad units that I've been seeing? I was wondering if comScore has ever taken a look at that to see if it's growing. Is it just a trend? Is this good for the appetizer?
I don't have any statistics on that off the top of my head, so I have to apologize for that. But I know that's been a big area where we've developed a couple different SDKs to basically enable measurement of that, to understand those type of events. So I know there's a lot of activity in that area, but I don't know any statistics on how does that help the ecosystem or hurt the ecosystem. But I'm aware of the trend. You want to pass the mic over to?
What's the viewability time threshold?
It varies by product, but I think for display ad, I think it's 1 second and 50% in view, right? For video, it's still being debated to an extent by the MRC, the Media Ratings Council, and the IAB.
Thank you.
So, question in the back, and then we'll come to the front. Can you pass the mic over there?
So my question is more about counting the ad impressions. Like I block every single ad that on any browser. So how do you count in those cases? Is it counted as an ad that is served on the page or not?
So if you're blocking, depends on the technology you're using, right? So from the delivery report, you'll see from the ad server, it most likely may not even show up there if it's a pure blocking DNS perspective, which is how they mostly do, so it doesn't count as a delivered ad. So in that case, it won't count. There are some cases where it will count. It gets a little bit interesting where the ad server is blocked, but the measurement code is not blocked. In that case, we would count as not in view. Cheetah, you want to get that? He's going to tackle you next time you walk by.
Do you do any measurement of negative sentiment as a result of ads? One of my personal banes is the forced video with audio that pops up and runs, And I take note of what website produces those, as well as whose video ad it is, as someone I don't want to do business with.
Absolutely, we do that. There's separate, more deeper kind of studies that go on where we basically do the attitude, right? And understanding, did this ad have a positive or, in your case, a negative reaction? And that's helped tries to shape some of those things. So you have seen over time some of those behaviors do eventually go away.
Yeah, one question I have, I think you study user clicks also, like some kind of analysis has been done on user clicks.
Yeah.
So
We actually published a study called Wither the Click.
okay, so any kind of prediction you can do, like a first-time viewer is going to buy from your ad? Any kind of predictions do you guys do?
It all depends on the creative and how it's positioned.
Okay.
And a core tenet of online advertising is this notion of reach and frequency, right? Which is really, this is where frequency comes into play, right?
Okay.
Repeating the message, right, generally has a better thing. Now, most of our analytics tend to be more driven towards brand advertising, where you tend to not buy a Lexus online, or tend not to buy Kraft macaroni and cheese online. So that's kind of where a lot of our analytics are going. So it's much more to getting to this gentleman's thing, which is brand. Do you have a favorite? Does it build favoritism in the brand? Is it going to make you, when you get to that purchase point, drive that? Because there's multi-billions of dollars driven in that market.
I have a question on what web analytics tool are you using on the petabytes of data that you have, and how is it reflecting on the user experience?
Sure. So we've actually built our own web analytics tool. We actually do sell that as a separate product called Digital Analytics that processes that data, and then some of the other analytics we've built ourselves. So to count, 1 trillion distinct cookies requires some special engineering to solve for that problem. We've done some pretty interesting stuff. There's actually a talk I gave, and it's online from Hadoop Summit, talking about how we handled the highly distinct count problem by using a database technology, a technique called sharding. I can't remember the URL, but I can. If you search Mike Brown comScore, it'll show up eventually.
Hi, I had a question. Oh, here.
So thank you.
Yeah. So what kind of human patterns are emerging out of the data? For example, does the rate of adoption of mobile determine how the rate of adoption of IoT or the rate of adoption of a new technology that's emerging? It's what are the human patterns that you can predict based on the hardcore analytical data?
I mean, first of all, I would say it's, the data clearly shows proliferation of devices and different types of systems out there. And people are willing to use not just one thing, but multiple things together. So you see apps being used with TV, right? We are becoming a much more distracted people. Trying to tell my kids, put the phone down. So that, to me, is a clear trend. The other clear trend is people want access to the data quickly, right? So what people will choose whatever platform is the best. I'm personally addicted to Wikipedia to solve those disputes. Whoa, who is this? Or what's the capital of this country? But I think that's kind of what our data shows. Hopefully that. Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with something that Kim.com from megaupload, mega.com was trying to do before the raids on megaupload by brokering a deal with Universal and basically trying to create something called Mega Key, where they would be doing ad replacement, but the users themselves actually had an association with this where they would earn credits towards music, towards free music, X number per year. Are you familiar with that? Do you have a commentary on it? And are you seeing other things that are similar?
I'm not familiar with that specific case, right? I mean, us as a company have tried to stay out of the digital rights reporting and things like that.
Not you guys actually
space.
doing that, but like seeing other products like that.
We are seeing things where you're measuring, different types of display exposures, but we haven't tried to track that back to different kinds of crediting systems. So we haven't done any analytics that I'm aware of on that.
Okay.
One more question.
Hey, on the pie chart, you had it conveniently broken down into a human panel and tags,
Yes.
into thirds. In reality, how much of the automated process do you have to go in and have humans check?
So in reality, it's the systems are 100% automated because we have to report data out every single day, and people get in the way of those kind of things. The things where people come in is basically identifying things that are starting to be flagged by our own internal processes, where you start seeing things that don't seem right, and that's basically how we define what we call new filters. So we continuously are adding new filters into the process based on what we're seeing, and that's where the human piece is really is basically saying, okay, we're seeing something new here, or something doesn't quite, something, our internal checks are showing something, and that's where the human piece comes into it, because doing it on, we've publicly stated we're measuring over 3 billion distinct, 3 billion ad impressions every day now. So having someone in there to manually do some of that stuff is just not scalable.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mike.